If I didn't know better, it I'd feel like it was Lincoln Riley who had a huge turnaround in 2023 with the USC Trojans, not Brent Venables cleaning up the mess that Lincoln Riley left him, turning it around in Norman instead. Welcome back to the Sooner Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Watkins, and if you love college football, particularly Oklahoma Sooner college football, you're definitely in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of the Sooner Magic Podcast. Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm still not done with these projected win totals and this continued disrespect for Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners as they head into their first season in the Southeastern Conference. You can blame the homer in me if you want to. Say whatever you want about me being delusional about what we see out of Oklahoma versus what we see about, well, in this case, USC, Lincoln Riley, and those Trojans who are heading into the Big Ten looking a hell of a lot worse than what Oklahoma looked in year 2 under Brent Venables. You wouldn't know that listening to the pundits all across the country. You still got Josh Pate saying that, how can you call Lincoln Riley overrated? He's not overrated. I would probably rate him 5th or 6th in the country as a head coach. That's overrated, Josh. That's overrated. Because he's not that. Okay. And the question that I would ask there is, where exactly would you rank Venables? To be fair about Josh Pate, he hasn't been killing Oklahoma so much. He's been one of the few that have actually told fans from throughout the SEC that Oklahoma's coming in there with a SEC roster and probably going to take a lot of people's, what did he say, spot on the bus, even in their first year as SEC members. Still, though, it amazes me that not just guys like Pate, but you've heard it on Pat McAfee and some of these other places of just, Riley's making his media rounds and talking about the amazing hires that he's made to add to the defense and make it what it's going to have to be to play for national championships, which he believes he's already done. The weird thing is that for Oklahoma fans, we've all kind of heard this story and watched it play out before. Back when, 2018, after he fired Mike Stoops, the defensive coordinator, in his second season as head coach of the Sooners, and replaced him with Alex Grinch, who in his second season as head coach of the USC Trojans, he fired in favor of now Danton Lynn and what he calls an all-star group of defensive coaches that are seeing the trajectory that USC is on and, making their way to USC to return them to glory. It certainly has not taken long for guys like Josh Pate, Pat McAfee, Colin Cowherd to forget the fact that USC and Lincoln Riley really, really struggled down the stretch of his second season in LA, losing 5 of their last 6 in the regular season after starting off the year 6-0, albeit a shaky 6-0. It also didn't take long for most people to forget about the turnaround that Brent Venables and his staff engineered in his second season, a year that saw the Sooners go 10-2 in the regular season, highlighted by a win over the hated Texas Longhorns in the Red River Shootout, a game and a win that was fueled in no small part by resurgence on the defensive side of the ball the likes of which we probably hadn't seen in Norman in about a decade. Now, just a couple of months later, we're hearing plenty of praise being heaped onto Riley for his supposed courageous change in philosophy, while people continue to doubt Venables and his Sooners headed into SEC play. And despite the fact that every coaching metric there is points to Venables, not Lincoln Riley, as the third-year coach that has his program on an actual upward trajectory. We have continually heard and really had to argue against that narrative that was out there after year one of both coaches at their respective schools, where basically most of the national media wanted to tell you that Venables was in over his head, that he was left a solid 11-2 program at Oklahoma and drove it into the ground with a 6-7 first year at the helm. Venables, of course, never made the excuse that anybody could have made and Lincoln Riley would have made about his first-year team in Oklahoma. A lot of folks were saying that Riley left him an amazing 11-2 program, despite the fact that, to be truthful, 45% of the roster turned over when Riley left, including 2 5-star quarterbacks, not to mention 13 players off a defensive depth chart that really hadn't had a very good season in their final year under Alex Grinch at OU. Those that were left over were ill-equipped to run Venables' defense, particularly with, the fact that it is quite a bit more advanced, I would say, and definitely the scheme is just not anywhere close to what they were used to running. Never mind the fact that with Benny Wiley as the strength and conditioning coach, now the strength and conditioning coach at USC, the Sooners were left pretty soft, not in the shape that it would take for you to really compete at the SEC level had they have been playing in the SEC this past season. Thankfully, Jerry Schmidt came back to the program. They have continued to recruit very well on the defensive side, and they made big strides in year 2 under Brent Venables. And at the end of the year, recruited what most people believe is the best defensive class in Oklahoma history overall. Now, that hasn't really changed the fact that Oklahoma continues to be a destination for offensive power as well. Jackson Arnold will go into year 3 with Brent Venables as the starting quarterback. He, of course, the 5-star plus quarterback from Denton Geyer that came in the 2023 class and won the Elite 11, will take over for Dylan Gabriel, who transfers to Oregon in 2024. Now, Venables recruiting and the resurgence in defensive recruiting isn't the only place that he's recruited well, however. Led by Jackson Arnold in the 2023 class, this year in total offense, OU ranked 3rd in the country. They were 4th in scoring offense overall and continued to rack up yards, despite the fact that the Heisman winner followed Lincoln Riley to USC. They also were able to beat Lincoln Riley in recruiting in all 3 cycles since the coaching change happened. Riley has not recruited inside the top 10 either season in any of the 3 recruiting cycles that he's had. This year, they finished at 18th overall in the country, while Oklahoma had its 3rd straight top 10 class. Their 2nd year, they had the number 5 class in the country, according to 247. Is your wireless company giving you a case of the what in the why is my wireless bill so expensive? Question: why are we paying so much for wireless service? Is it for speed, coverage, data, 5G access, mobile hotspot? Well, our new partners at Hall of Fame College Football, Mint Mobile, they have all these features, and for way, way less than big wireless. Like way, way less. As low as $15 a month. You can get signed up and activate your service immediately without having to leave your home. Mint Mobile reimagined the wireless process, making it easy and online. no more stores, no salespeople, and no giving. With Mint Mobile, you get all the features you become accustomed to with Big Wireless, the nation's largest 5G network, and service for as low as $15 a month. To start saving today, just log on to our partner website, trymintmobile.com/HOF. Again, that's trymintmobile.com/HOF. You can get signed up and activate your service immediately. Big Wireless wants you to believe they're the only option. Here's the deal. Big Wireless. You get comparable service to Big Wireless. You don't have to talk to a salesperson to do it. Largest 5G network in the country, as low as $15 a month. Sign up for Mint Mobile today so you can stop getting by Big Wireless. How are they doing all this? To be honest with you, it's pretty simple. Oklahoma is relying on a changing culture and doing it one way, the right way, the only way that Brent Venables knows how to do it in order to continue to attract high-level talent to Oklahoma in a way that Lincoln Riley would have told you, has been telling you that he was unable to do and that you would never be able to do in Norman. The narrative that he gave a lot of folks headed out of town was that you could not recruit elite defensive or offensive talent good enough to win the national championship to Oklahoma. It's become obviously clear that Lincoln could not. He was right about that. But he also hadn't been able to do it in the place that he's called the Mecca of college football, USC. Only his 2016-2017 team, led by Baker Mayfield, that went into the Rose Bowl against Georgia, really put up much of a fight once they got there. And you saw them continue to get smaller and less competitive from there on out. Offensively, yeah, they continued to put points on the board all the time. They led by high-level quarterback play by guys like Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and later on Jalen Hurts after he transferred to Oklahoma from Alabama. Nevertheless, they were never really able to put anything together on defense, even after getting rid of Mike Stoops and Jerry Schmidt as well, in favor of his own guys, Alex Grinch and Benny Wiley. Now, looking at USC headed into the Big Ten, I don't know how anybody can say that they're on a better trajectory than the team he left in Norman. Since Venables got to town, they've made significant strides. Year one wasn't good on defense. It was still pretty good on offense. They were 124th in the country, just a tad bit ahead or a tad bit behind USC on total defense. But it was essentially the defense that depleted was left behind by Alex Grinch as well. Still, Venables never made that excuse. Venables was never the guy to pawn off their inability to get things done in year one on defense to Alex Grinch or Lincoln Riley. He took responsibility for it on himself and his staff and vowed to continue working until he got it right. Year two, they were much better in almost every facet of defense, as I told you on our last video talking about why I believe they're going to be a lot better. Even in year one of the SEC, year three has historically been the year that a Brent Venables defense really comes into its own and becomes a strength of the football team that he coaches for. And you can see that happening again as they head into the SEC in 2024, as they added 5 blue chip defensive line prospects and kept around a Butkus Award watch list guy, along with Billy Bowman, who led the country in interceptions and INTs return for a touchdown on a defense that improved on average about 50 places in most statistical categories as a team. They will have to be quite a bit better in year three, But historically speaking, they've already done that. Oddly enough, nobody seems to believe they are going to be that, though. Even though they have more productivity coming back to this defense than any other team in the SEC, and Lincoln Riley at USC, yeah, they've got some guys coming back, but he's never even, his teams have never even shown an ability to get better from one year to the next, even after coaching changes. The truth is, we don't know that Riley actually understands how you can help your football team be better on the defensive side. He's great at talking about it and making excuses about it, but we've heard all these promises long before. This is basically the exact way that it played out in Oklahoma, only essentially this is the same kind of thing that we've heard from year 2, 3 on in Norman when Riley was there, after he hired Alex Grinch, to now you're seeing pretty much the same thing play out in LA. Now, do they have a better coaching staff there than what he ever brought to OU on the defensive side of the ball? Yeah, possibly. D'Anton Lynn showed that he could put together a top 15 total defense in the country at UCLA last season. They poached him away from there, and they've also apparently gotten some high quality coaches in their positions, throughout the defensive side of the ball. That's all well and good. But the thing is have you changed the culture in the way that you're going to do things? Has Lincoln shown the ability or even the understanding that it's not just about bringing in good coaches and expecting them to do your job? Everybody tends to know, most people tend to understand and realize that being sound on both sides of the ball takes what we call complementary football and game planning. We haven't really seen that ever from Lincoln Riley. In fact, last year, when he could have helped Alex Grinch by adding some other defensive coaches that maybe had a little more success under their belt, he didn't do it. Yet we're still supposed to believe that in year 3 at USC and going into a conference that's going to require you to play tough defense and play with a hard-nosed style that we've never seen out of a Lincoln Riley team, all of a sudden he's going to be that guy and do that. Josh Pate said that he believes he's one of the top 5 coaches in the country, probably somewhere around 5th or 6th. I think that's an insane place to put him. When it comes to offensive know-how and ability to not only just work with quarterbacks, but to dial up an offense that can hurt and put another team in jeopardy, I don't think there's anybody better than Lincoln Riley. When it comes to doing the things that you have to do for your entire team to flourish, I've seen nothing that makes me believe that it'll ever get better. Does that mean it can't? No, it doesn't. But we have a sample size of 2 years that tells me probably not. Again, 2-7 against top 25 teams since he got to USC and giving up an average of 42 points per game. Yeah, they could score, and they scored in their first season, but they gave up all kinds of points and yardage in both years. And it seemed like in year 2, really, they regressed significantly on the offensive side of the ball too. Even despite having probably, what PFF said was the number 1 running back in the country, they were outrushed in the Utah game. I believe it was like 99 to 299 to 3 or something like that. That was their yardage difference, or 199 to 3, something like that. It was insanity, right? Against Notre Dame, they were absolutely steamrolled on the defensive side of the ball because of the way that they played in the trenches. This is the way the Big Ten is going to play all the time. For everything that he did to add to this defensive staff, one thing that he didn't do was get rid of the guy that people around Norman love to call the yoga instructor, or Tybo. Benny Wiley, the strength and conditioning coach, who really has continued to just show guys that get smaller and smaller every year that he is their strength and conditioning coach. A lot of people were calling for his head at USC, including Matt Sinek from Trojan Wire, and yet he's still on staff. That makes you wonder, how dedicated is Lincoln Riley to making the changes that you have to make to be a championship program? Why would you only go halfway? Coach Venables, they saw a significant improvement on the defensive side of the ball and still fired his defensive coordinator, Ted Roof, in favor of someone that he believes is an up-and-comer and who worked with him for 7 seasons while he was at Clemson, in Zach Alley. They didn't get worse, they got better, and he's still making changes for the better, not dragging his feet on making changes like it appears that Lincoln Riley's doing, right? I don't understand why you wouldn't change that if you know that that's an issue. He said himself, you got to get bigger, and yet he's going with the guy that I don't know that Benny Wiley understands how to make a team bigger and stronger and faster. It's just not something he's ever done. In the end, I don't understand how anybody can see that SC is on a better trajectory, even going into the Big Ten, than what you see Oklahoma headed in going into the SEC. I don't understand how you can do it. And yet here we are. FanDuel has USC picked their projected win total is at 7.5 going into it. That's where Oklahoma's is now for FanDuel, but it started at 6.5 and was bet to that, to the 7.5 it's at now. It's disrespectful all the way around, which is maybe not a terrible thing for Oklahoma to be slept on a little bit headed into their first season in a terribly tough conference, the SEC. Still, again, if you are one of those people that sees USC headed in a better direction, then I tend to wonder why. All you have to do is look at the recruiting. Venables has beaten him every year in recruiting and beaten him soundly in recruiting, not just on defense, but on offense as well. They've gotten guys out of the portal that Riley wasn't able to get. And even the guys that Riley has gotten, you know, guys like Bear Alexander last year, you know, Mason Cobb out of Oklahoma State, guys that were expected to really improve that defense, they got worse. Offensively, they got worse too. And yet you still have people talking about them and Riley as one of the top coaches in the country. They're sleeping on Venables, still loving on Riley, and their trajectory couldn't be more opposite. In the end, this is just another reason why I'm going to tell you that I believe this Oklahoma football team is absolutely headed in the right direction. I believe that Oklahoma actually had a favor done for it, despite the way that Riley left. And we could talk about that all day long. I won't go back into all that again. But the slimy way in which he left, the continual little shots that he's taken in the direction of fans and the administration at Oklahoma since he's left, even saying things like people were trying to break into his home or whatever there in Norman after he made the switch after the first year. It's always these little things, right? He doesn't let it go. A lot of Oklahoma fans, we get accused, I've been accused of it a ton, of us not letting it go. Believe me now, I don't think that there's any Oklahoma fan left, period, anywhere that isn't happy to have Brent Venables at the helm instead of Lincoln Riley. And I venture to say that a couple of years from now, it's going to be clear and super crystal clear who the better coach is and which program is in better shape, Venables Sooners or USC and Lincoln Riley. To me, it's already very clear. But there's more to prove as far as the rest of the country is concerned, and that's fine. I think there's more to prove if you're a Sooner fan too. You want to see them take that next step that you haven't seen them take in a long time. I am positive that they have the coach to take that next step. And I, for one, super grateful that his name is not Lincoln Riley. Let me know what you think in the comment section about where this Oklahoma team is headed and where you think that the USC program is headed as well. Is Lincoln ever going to be able to get it flipped around and be able to do the things to serve both sides of his program? Or is everything we're hearing coming out of LA, just more of what we heard before when he was in Norman. I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments. We'll see you guys on the next one.